I want to have a deep dive conversation about somebody who's gone from an employee to an entrepreneur. And one of the few people in my personal network who has made that leap and made it successfully is the one and only Mr. Bill Allen. How you doing, Bill?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having this conversation, allowing me to kind of share it with the audience. But I just want to talk about that transition. You've obviously done it over the years. You kind of started slowly and then gone for it. Let's remind people what your day job was before you became Bill Allen, the entrepreneur.
Yeah, I was flying helicopters and airplanes for the Navy. Actually, at that time, I was a test pilot in Patuxent River, Maryland, flying a couple different helicopters, and then I went from there to be a flight instructor down in Pensacola. And that's kind of the time where I was starting a side hustle in real estate.
So again, your job was being a test pilot, and that's what you did. That's how you got paid. That's how you paid the bills. And then, what was the inkling to, hey, let's go try to flip a home? Because I think that was the first thing you did, right?
Yeah, I bought a couple rentals. Like I had like
Mm.
one rental house
Oh, that's
before
right.
this. Actually, I bought my second rental house when I was in Pax River, Maryland. Really, some of the catalyst was really getting married, and then we got pregnant pretty quick after we got married with our first son. So I went from like feeding one me and just taking care of me to having very quickly think about three people.
Right.
And my wife, you know, was from England, stay at home mom. She wanted to stay at home, didn't want to go back to be a nurse like she was in England. And so, I had to support a couple people. And I was used to socking away a lot of money. Like I would save like 60% of my income when I was single to
Mhm.
invest with. And yeah, I just saw that starting to erode and I didn't want to slow down my kind of retirement goals
Okay.
because I had to, you know, feed three people instead of one.
I am curious at that time when you talk about your investing goals, when you were socking money away, what was that? Was that stocks or mutual funds or what was that?
Yeah, I was a real hardcore Vanguard index
Mm.
fund investor. Like
Okay.
very much just I'm going to tweak my portfolio over long periods of time. I'm going to invest, as much money as I can and just leave it there forever. So that was kind of what I had done the past 10 years before. So my IRAs, my 401ks. My 401k was still in the thrift savings plan, which
Mhm.
is another great kind of index fund. And that was it. It was all stock market. Man.
Okay. All right. So now you've got three mouths to feed. You're looking for additional ways to I guess get income, side hustle. Um, was that first leap, that first flip? Was that where we went next?
Yeah, I did. I did. I had two rental houses, and when I started tracking my net worth. So when I saw that my net worth was really going up, I every month I would say like, what did I do that month? And
Mm.
so when I got my second rental house, I noticed the equity in there was building on my first one, and then I was starting to get some cash flow. It was like $400 a month, $500 a month, but it started to add up and start
Mm.
stacking when I got my second one. And then I actually went out to buy a third rental house, but my realtor said, if you sold this, fixed up and sold it, you can make
Oh,
good money. And so it was going to be a rental house. Like I bought it. I bought it on auction. I planned on renting it out. I was using the Burr method at the time. Like I was, raising capital or using my 401k or my own money
sure.
and then, cashing out of it. And she wanted a second commission and we fixed it up. And it took about 6 months to get my from purchase to sale. And I made $43,000 and that was like half of my military salary. And so that
Ah,
was huge for me. Like I was like, holy crap, I just made
wow.
43 grand. This is like life-changing money for me at the time.
Right.
And so I said, that felt pretty good. Let's see if we can do it again.
Some is good, more is better. It's
Yeah.
kind of the
And,
thing.
and I honestly was like, this might be a fluke. Let me prove it and do it
Yeah.
again. And funny enough, I spent probably 3 or 4 more months in Maryland before I moved to Pensacola for my next duty station. And when you're in the military, you move every 2 to 3 years. Sometimes earlier, sometimes you stay somewhere for 3 or 4 maybe, but you're always moving. So I think that's why a lot of military people struggle to kind of build something like this. You got to find something that's kind of mobile. And so for 2 or 3 months, I was trying to get another house in Maryland because I had a good contractor, I had a good realtor. And I knew that even if they were still working on it when I left to Pensacola, it'd be fine. But after 2 or 3 months away from moving to Pensacola, I said, "Look, I'm just going to I'm going to start studying and learning Pensacola again, the real estate market there." Because I lived there before a couple times, but I never like bought and sold houses or anything there. So I was like educating myself and learning from a distance, and then so I'd be ready when I got there to buy something. And it took another 6 months before I found my next project to renovate and resell. But I moved to Pensacola, found another house. I actually had heard like people, I almost quit. Actually, I almost quit. I was really frustrated. I was like sending some mailers, trying to buy from wholesalers. It was just getting really, I was like, man, maybe this was a fluke. And I remember I was driving from the base home with my flight suit on. And I'd been listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of Bigger Pockets podcasts. And I was on the forums all the time, Bigger Pockets forum. And I heard people say estate sales are a great place to buy houses. And I remember like it was yesterday. I was literally about to quit. Just like told my wife, I don't know if this is for me. This is frustrating. I'm not, I have this money that I want to buy these houses with, but I can't find them. And I saw the sign for an estate sale, and I made a right turn. It was on my way home. I just made a right turn. I drove up there, parked my car, and walked in my flight suit and my uniform and everything. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm just going to talk to these people that own it and just see what they're doing with the house. And it was the wife, the older woman whose husband had passed away, and her son and her grandson was there. And I picked up and bought a couple books from them. They had old Navy Blue Jacket manuals, like old, really cool stuff. And I talked to them. I said, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking, I buy houses, I pay cash, all this stuff. What do you guys think about doing with the house? And the son said, well, I have a realtor coming to look at it. We're in town from, I think it was like Indiana. I think they lived in Indiana. So we're in town for a little while trying to figure out what to do with the house because mom's going to move back with us. So we are interested in selling. I said, well, if I can come take a look at it, make a cash offer, I will. And I ended up buying that house, maybe a couple weeks later. Made an offer. They liked it, bought that house, fixed it up, made $45,000 on that house, about 6 month purchase to close. And then I said, okay, I've done it twice. This is repeatable. There's a business here.
Okay. So you've done it twice. You're out of the POC phase, proof of concept. You've found repeatability. You've done it in 2 markets at this point. So you said there's a business there. Was that the transition from Bill, the employee, to Bill, the entrepreneur? Or would you still call that, Bill, has 2 jobs maybe?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this was a side hustle for me still. It was just kind of nights and weekends. Almost like my farm is right now. I have a farm and we might do like $500,000 or $600,000 this year in top line revenue. But morning and in evenings is when I usually work on that. I don't, sitting here at the desk, in my company, and morning and evenings, I'll kind of do that stuff after the kids go to bed or in the morning, getting that thing up and going. So it's still definitely side hustle. And I definitely did not have a entrepreneurial mindset. I was very much an employee mindset still. Like I was doing all the work to save money. I was on the way to work, on the way home from work. If the contractor didn't show up, I mean, I remember one time, same house when I was in my flight suit buying it at the estate sale, the tile guy didn't show up to grout the tile. I think he was grouting the tile, and I had other people coming in the next day. I drove home from work. I had to call my wife, be like, I'm not coming home tonight. And I'm sitting there like doing grout in my flight suit. Like,
oh, wow.
Grouting the tile because the dude didn't show up, and I had to get it done by the next day. And so I knew how to do it. Unfortunately, nobody else was there, and I just spent like 3 hours there doing it myself. And so that was my, still side hustle. Still, even after that house, I still was stuck in, I'll just do everything myself. I'll figure it all out. And I wanted to do 12 houses the next year. I said, I think I can do 12 houses on the side, make 30K a house instead of 40 to 45. And be able to still, fly airplanes and do my Navy job. Because I didn't hate my Navy job. Like I loved it. I said, I'll keep doing this job as long as I'm having fun, is what I always said. And I was having fun flying. I mean, you give me the keys to an airplane and free gas.
Let's watch out.
Yeah. Let me go upside down, do some aerobatics with the student, go get some free lunch. Like there's nothing better than that. And so, so I still was just kind of like, I'm just going to, I wasn't a real estate investor. I was kind of like a part-time house flipper, and I thought maybe I could do some more.
All right. So when did you first get the inclination? So obviously you already know it's a business. You've kind of done that after the second one. When did you start to realize that maybe Navy should be part-time and, house flipping or being a real estate investor should go full-time? Because right now it feels Navy is full-time, investing is part-time. When did that ever flip? And you're like, hey, I'm going to do Navy on the side and all of that?
Yeah, funny enough for me, kind of. So the next step was I started listening to this other podcast. It was called a House Flipping HQ podcast. This guy named Justin Williams. I was kind of listening to him in tandem, Bigger Pockets and Justin. Justin was very much like, he was selling some education there, and Bigger Pockets very much like anti-education, at least at that time. I would say they probably are pretty similar. now. There's a lot of people like, don't spend your money, you can get it all for free. And so I was kind of torn. I was very cheap. I was very much, I'm not spending money. I didn't even buy books or go to events or conferences, anything. Like it's very much just I'll get as much free stuff as I can. And that's just same thing. Like I'm going to work
Yeah.
on the project instead of hiring somebody,
Yep.
So that's my mindset for sure. And so Justin launched this program called Seven Figure Flipping. It was like $25,000, but he was flipping like 150 houses and he never saw them. He's living in California and flipping these houses all over the country. And he had a team, and I didn't really know how he was doing it, but he said he had systems and processes and things like this. He's speaking my language from the engineering side.
Right.
And so that's kind of when I was like, maybe these people can help me do like a few more. Like I've done one a year for the last 2 years. Maybe they can help me do a few more. They're doing 150. They can probably help me do 12. And so
Okay.
I made that investment. That was kind of my first leap. Definitely a longer story of why I made the investment, but very much like, jumped into that. And then I remember I went to the first event there, and him and this guy, Andy McFarland, were like sitting at the table while we were all doing presentations and masterminding. This is early kind of mastermind. I didn't even know what that was at the time. It was about 8 years ago.
Hmm.
And I opened my like I'm actually having to work on my projects, like my mail was going out and things like that while I was there. So I had my computer open. I get an email from Andy McFarland because I'm on his buyers list, and I still remember he's sitting on the edge of this like countertop at the hotel, like you got the
Yeah.
cabinet, the countertop on the side where it's like sunk in the wall. He's sitting on top of that, just like dangling his legs, no phone, no computer, and he's paying attention to us all 3 days. And I get
Wow.
these emails from him while I'm there about these houses that are for sale with his name on it. I'm like, who's sending these emails, man? Like, you're sitting here. You've never left. Like, you haven't even
Yeah.
left like the bathroom or anything. And I just got an email from you. How is this? This is like magic that's happening. How are you doing this voodoo that he was doing? It
This
was
is voodoo. Yeah.
yeah. And so I was like, you know what? There's a whole nother like that's a business where
Got
he's
it.
not doing anything. He's got people doing that for him. And he's the one that convinced me to hire my first person. He's like, you want to do 12 houses? It's like, how are you going to do that? I was like, I don't know. You got the systems. You just tell me how to do it.
Mm.
And he said, I still remember he was like, well, if you want to do 12 times what you did last year and actually have more time for your family, like you're going to need some help. You have to have somebody
Right.
that's going to help you and keep flying because I mean, I didn't leave, I didn't leave my full-time military job until I was doing almost 200 houses a year, wholesaling and flipping.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
200 houses a year? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So
Okay.
that first year I joined that program. We did 67 houses in about 8 months, and it was me and a team of 2 or 3. And then the next year we did 135 houses, and it
Still
was
working. Still
yeah, still
full-time
full
job.
time. And by the way, it's not like so I had some leniency. I was an officer in the military, so I wasn't, enlisted where I every minute of my day was accounted for. But it's usually flying like for 10 or 12 hours I'd have to work a day. So that's like brief a flight, go fly a student, debrief the student, brief another student, fly another flight, debrief the other student, then do paperwork for 2 flights every day, 5 days a week. Now, if
Yeah.
it rained, a lot of times, if it was raining, it was nice because I could like go check on my project potentially or like dip out for lunch, cancel my flight because bad weather. And then I had a like a ground job side, we have like collateral duties at that unit, but I wasn't like deployed. I wasn't overseas. I was in Pensacola. I'd have to leave 1 weekend a month. I'd have to fly to another, do a cross country, go fly to some other state with a student. So three events on Friday, 3 events on Sunday. But anytime in the middle, I was just like popping in and checking on my stuff. Like, hey,
Okay.
what can I do? Answer an email or two or something like that. And I would say the time where I actually, so I was shifting more to um, an entrepreneurial, like business owner mindset at that time. Like
Okay.
as building my company from, I'm just going to go do it all myself to what can I delegate? And that transition happened in that first year in that mastermind of I can't do all this stuff myself. And since then, I've just been trying to shift more and more into that. But I didn't leave the Navy until I felt like it was probably more dangerous. Like I was more interested in the houses and real estate and business than I was in the flying and the military stuff. And we have a son who had a heart condition, needed open heart surgery. So that really kind of like pushed me to make a decision of my next step, stay in the military or get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So so again, when you were starting out as an employee, it was very monetary focused. It seems like your first shift to that business mindset was, what could I delegate? Right? Right, I could do more, delegate. I can't do it all myself. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, for sure. I still like, there was times where I just, I mean, it was ingrained in me, like figure something out, understand it, how it works. I've always been like an engineer and a tinkerer. Like I want to understand, let me take this thing apart and figure out how it works,
Right.
make it better. I thought very highly of myself, I could do it. Nobody could do it better than me. I think a lot of people kind of have that problem. But what really opened my eyes was like 70 or 80% of me, and you have like 4 or 5 of those people in the company, is better than just 100% of you.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
they start stacking and multiplying, and even though they're not doing it exactly the way that you do it, and I just, was constantly trying to, help people and lead them and make them a little bit better. And what I realized was I was really scared to do that in my business, like pay
Mm,
people, hire people, because it was my money
right.
versus I would do this in the military all the time. Like I was, leading hundreds of people, at least dozens of people in like a department, and then we go out to the squadron type level, where as I started moving up in rank, I've got junior officers that I'm leading and enlisted soldiers. And so it just wasn't my money. Like that was the
Right.
big risk. I felt like it was the money. Like, what, I have to be responsible for these people's pay.
Yeah.
And so
So how did you get over that? Because that's one of the big things I've said is like, hey, no matter what I'm doing, I don't want employees. I don't want to be responsible for, wages and making payroll, if you will. Right.
Yeah, well,
How'd you
I
get
kind
around
of had
that?
to get forced into it in the beginning. Just say, okay, fine, I'll do it. Like,
Okay.
I'm paying you $25,000. Let me try this out. And in fact, the first woman that I hired was, she stayed with me for like, she quit after a week. Her husband was moving to another job, and I
Mm.
had just spent a week training her. And then she's like, hey, I can't do this job
Gots to
anymore.
go.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is my first employee. This is not a good experience. Like, what am I going to do? And instead of quitting and just like throwing in the towel and saying, see, it doesn't work. Honestly, I think that $25,000 I say spent at the time, that's what I thought it was, but I invested in myself. It was, that forced me to say, okay, like I just got to keep going. Like I paid all this money. I got to listen to the teacher, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And so I hired another person, and she ended up working out really well. She worked with me, for, I don't know, 5, 6 years,
Mm.
and was an unbelievable employee, an amazing person. And what happened was I started seeing some results from that, and people, like, things were happening while I was at work. Because I mean, if I'm flying, I'm up at 20,000 feet with an oxygen mask and a G suit on, right, in a pressurized cockpit. I can't answer the phone.
No.
So when my phone would ring, I wouldn't answer it. They'd call somebody else. Like when your toilet is overflowing, and you're in pain, you got a big problem that you want solved, like these people that are selling their house for pennies on the dollar. Like, if the plumber doesn't answer, you're calling another plumber. You're not like
Yeah.
waiting for him to call you back, you know?
Right.
And so that was a big thing that helped me. And I would say part of it was just I learned that I really enjoyed having other people make money with me. We
Mm.
started to see some success. I would say it really kind of sunk in when we started, doing that first deal. So the first deal that we ever did, still remember, $9,900 check. It was a wholesale deal in Pensacola, 3100 West Cross Street in Pensacola, 32505, I think, is the zip. If anybody wants to look it
Wow.
up.
I like it.
Um, it was the first wholesale deal I ever did. It was the biggest belief shift that I ever had, because I didn't see the house. I didn't go on the appointment. I sold it on the back end. Like, I sold the contract. I wholesaled it to the buyer, but my salesperson that I hired went and, put under contract. My lead intake manager answered the phone and did all that, set it all up. And together, the two of them, they got it all done. They got the deal done and locked up, got the
Mm.
pictures, put them all in Google Drive. And then I had to go find the buyer. And really cool. That was, that $9,900 hit the bank account. That was changed everything. Like, they did it. They did it. And I was
Wow.
struggling to do it myself. And even with just me and my first employee, Dee Dee, we were struggling to do it together. I had to bring on a third person. And when I did, she threw the fire on it all. Like, that team was a
Mm.
rock star team.
Yeah, that was the unlock. If you're, there's a lot of employees that watch my channel, W2 employees. A lot of them probably like me, they think naturally they're going to, like I consider myself an employee and an investor. Some of them are looking to become entrepreneurs, which again is a leap that you've made. What are some questions they should ask themselves to kind of get ready, or kind of go down that path? Because I haven't done it and you have. What are some ideas or questions they should address?
Yeah. One thing I want to mention with the employee piece is a lot of people think if you're going to hire a $60,000 employee, you need to have $60,000 in your bank account. And when I realized that's not true very early on, like what I need to do is I need to have about 3 months of their salary just earmarked for it. And then if they're not producing in 30 days or 60 days, then I need to be ready to let them go. And
Right.
so they should be making money. They should be making a return on their salary very quickly. It usually takes somebody about 30 days to get up and running. So don't be too hard on them the first 30 days, but the next 30 days, they need to be doing a lot better than they did the first 30 days.
Right.
And then the next 30 days, like they should be light years different than the first 30. So if
Okay.
that's not happening, then number one, it's a management and training problem for you, like a leadership training problem. And then second of all, they just might not be picking up what you're putting down. So that's something that I would say is you don't need all that money up front. And so it's not as high risk as you think.
Hmm.
So questions that I would ask somebody is number one, like how fast do you want to go?
Okay.
Because if you want to go slow, you can do it yourself probably. And if you're cool with like, I was just not cool waiting until I'm in my 60s become a millionaire. I was when I was young. Like that's what everybody told me. That's what I
Right.
thought I had to do. That's what I was taught my whole life. That's what the system teaches us.
Right.
But I wanted to go faster. Like, and I needed to go faster. I had now 3 mouths to feed, and then soon to be four with heart problems and massive medical issues that will never go away his whole life, like tons. And I need a lot of money to support our son James, and then soon to be after a third one, three kids, now five. And then soon I'm gonna have grandkids, and then we got so many farm animals now. It's like I gotta take care of everybody. So I want to go faster, and if you want to go faster, you can't do it all yourself. You just really
Right.
can't. Whether it's partners or it's employees or team members, and then do you want to lead a team? Like, are you interested in leadership? You don't have to be great at leadership right now, but like, do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a follower? So those are a couple things that I would just throw out there. And if you're called to do it, you're getting a tap, something like that. I think it's 100% worth exploring. You don't have to be amazing at it from day one.
Hmm.
I wasn't. I've made a lot of mistakes. Still do. But I like to take the risk. Like I loved, and the risk. I get the big risk and the big reward. So like the employee, they get lifestyle. Like you get to
Right.
punch a clock. You know when you're on, know when you're off. You're not going to get a call when the building's on fire, when the company's going. But I like to be Michael Jordan. I want to have the ball. If you want to have the ball in the last 5 seconds, like that's who I think would be great at this. Like
Right.
if you love solving complex problems, you love, having the opportunity to make a lot of money, you like to go fast, um, you know, those kind of things. So you want to be sitting on the bench, you can like,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with being an employee either. Like we got to have
No.
them. We got to
No.
have them. Like they got to be out there. And there's some really great ones. And when you combine a great employee with a great leader and a great entrepreneur and a great visionary, I mean, that's when the magic happens. Like I could never have done any of this stuff myself without my
No.
people, the people I was talking about. We,
Yeah.
no way. Like I'd
Yeah.
still be, I don't know. I'd still be doing
I
the
I think
route.
I heard Ed Milet say this the other day. And again, I think there's a lot. Ed Milet said 92% of people, I don't know where he got that number from, but that's his number, are employees, and 8% of us are natural entrepreneurs. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it feels directionally correct. Um, I think I think you got to know thyself. And the other thing I took from your story is you didn't quite burn the bridges. You got to proof of concept,
Yeah.
and then you leaped, right? I do hate the idea of this notion of, hey, your W-2 is atrocious, blah, 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 burn the boat, start something from scratch. That's gambling. That's too risky for me.
There's something in there though. I want to just real quick mention that. Like the challenge
Go
that I
ahead.
see a lot of times is if you're just going to dip your toe in and you're going to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, all that stuff, you're never actually going to give it everything that it needs to
Mm-hmm.
get going. So just be careful with like, yeah, it was my side hustle, but it very quickly became something that I was like when I do something, I commit, I go all in on it. Like I'm
Right.
either all or nothing. So if I'm going to do it, like I'm going at it as hard as I can. I'm gonna spend all of my time, my spare time, my extra time I was spending there. Like I knew that it was going to take a year of my focus and my time and almost 40 hours a week on top of the 50, 60
Mhm.
hours a week I was already doing.
Right.
Pretty much that was it. That was my life. It was flying. It was, spending some time with my family, but I was definitely pulling from that family time in that first year. And I told my wife, and then that I was going to do that, and then putting all of it into my business, not just like, hey, if this doesn't work out, like no big deal, because that's the people that I see. They don't listen. It goes
Mhm.
slow. They don't go. So if you, I agree, you don't have to quit your job, but you definitely need some pressure.
Mhm.
You need something that's going to push you. Because naturally we're just not going to give it everything that it needs to become
True.
successful when it's not our main focus.
The last
So,
thing I'll say, and again, please feel free to disagree. I think being an entrepreneur today is sexy. It is sold as the better option than being a W-2 employee. But I think for most people, there's nothing wrong with being an employee and being an investor. What do you think?
no, I totally agree with that. I also don't, I kind of disagree with if it's Ed Milet that said that 8%. Like, I also don't think you need to be a natural entrepreneur.
Oh, there
Like,
you go.
like
Yeah.
you don't need to be like born entrepreneur, like natural entrepreneur. I've seen so many people that they don't fit the mold. It doesn't make
Mm.
sense on paper, but they're amazing at what they do. And so what I try to look at three things. Number one, what is something that I would do every day for free? Like jump
Yeah.
out of bed, kick the sheets off of my bed. I would do it for free because I love it. The second thing is what am I the best in the world at? Like what do I love to do? Like I love to do this stuff and I'm really, really good at it. And if I have those two things and it has the ability to make me money, like I figure out the economic engine behind it, I need all three of those things.
There you go. Bill, you're doing a lot on YouTube and Instagram and the like. Where should people follow you?
Yeah, I have a channel called Bill Allen, just my name on YouTube, and then at Bill Allen REI on Instagram. It's the same as the YouTube channel.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.